Across town, my sister and my parents were celebrating, convinced that I would be the one going to prison for the crash she caused. I let the handcuffs snap around my wrists. Get out of the car, the officer yelled, pointing his gun. They had forgotten one very small detail. The chilling silence in the courtroom wasn't a product of awe, but of an absolute devastating ruin. Chloe, usually so vibrant and dismissive, sat slumped, her face a mask of disbelief and betrayal, not at Liam, but at the sheer unyielding weight of the truth. Robert and Martha, her parents, my parents, were beside her, their once proud posture now resembling collapsing edifices, their eyes vacant, reflecting the cold, hard gleam of a shattered illusion. The verdict had just been read, a cascade of words that condemned Chloe to a future she had so carelessly tried to foist upon her own brother. And as for Liam, the protagonist of this macabre family drama, he walked free, yes, but not entirely whole. That moment, that single, devastating moment, as the gavel fell and the hushed murmurs filled the air, was the true final update to a story that began in the blinding flash of an unjust arrest. It's a story about a family that chose sides, about a truth buried under layers of privilege and denial, and about the one small detail that brought it all crashing down. Wait, I'm getting ahead of myself. That's the end of the road, the destination of a long, torturous journey. To truly understand the gravity of that silence, that collapse, we have to go back to the beginning, to the moment Liam felt the cold steel of the handcuffs bite into his wrists, under a sky that seemed to mock his despair with its indifferent stars. The air was thick with the acrid scent of burnt rubber and spilled coolant, a symphony of destruction that still rings in my ears when I revisit this case. It was late, past midnight, when the cruiser's flashing lights painted the quiet suburban street in a strobe of red and blue. Liam had pulled over, his older, beat-up sedan sputtering, a relic next to the sleek, expensive German SUV, mangled just a few yards away. He was still processing the shock of the impact, the sudden, violent lurch, the shattering glass. But the officer, a broad-shouldered man with a stern, unyielding face, wasn't interested in his shock. He was interested in the story that had already been spun. "Sir, step out of the vehicle, hands where I can see them." The voice, Officer Miller's voice, was a bark, cutting through the ringing in Liam's ears. Liam, dazed, complied. His hands trembled slightly as he raised them, the glare of the flashlight blinding him. "You were driving that SUV, weren't you? The one crash into the streetlight." Miller's tone was accusatory. Already convinced we had a call, driver fled the scene. Liam blinked. "No, officer, I was in this car, my car." He gestured feebly towards his sedan. "I was just driving home. The SUV, it just came out of nowhere. Swerved right into the pole. I pulled over to see if anyone was okay." Miller scoffed, a dismissive sound that solidified Liam's growing dread. "Don't play dumb with me, kid. Don't play dumb with me, kid." "We have a witness," said the driver of that black SUV, dark hair, male, got out, looked at the damage, then got into your car and tried to drive away. He pointed to Liam's sedan, then back to the crumpled SUV. "License plate matches the description given by the caller. Your sister's vehicle, isn't it, Chloe Miller?" Liam's heart sank. Chloe, of course, his sister. The small detail in the title. They thought he was her Porce, his sister. The small detail in the title, they thought he was her, or rather, they thought he was the driver of the SUV after having switched cars. But this wasn't just a mix-up. This was a setup. The call, the description, it all sounded too perfect, too crafted. "That's my sister's SUV, yes," Liam admitted, his voice barely a whisper. "But I wasn't driving it. I was in my own car." Officer Miller wasn't listening. His gaze was fixed on the crumpled driver's side door of Chloe's SUV, then back to Liam. "All right, hands behind your back." Liam felt the cold press of the handcuffs. He didn't resist. What was the point? The narrative was already written, the script already flipped. He let the handcuffs snap around his wrists, the metallic click echoing in the oppressive quiet. "Get out of the car," Miller repeated, gun still holstered, but his hand resting ominously on the grip. "You're under arrest for reckless driving, hit and run, and property damage." And across town, in their well-appointed home, Chloe and his parents, Martha and Robert, were almost certainly celebrating that the problem child, Liam, was finally getting what he deserved. That the golden child, Chloe, was once again magically untouched. This, dear audience, is the raw, visceral moment where the machinery of injustice begins to grind. Liam, caught in the headlights of a carefully constructed lie, utterly bewildered. He's not just facing legal trouble. He's facing a profound betrayal from the very people who should have been his bedrock. The sensory details here are crucial. The smell of burnt rubber, the flashing lights, the cold steel, the officer's dismissive scoff. They anchor us to Liam's complete isolation, his sudden stark understanding that he is utterly alone in this. This is more than a simple arrest. It's an emotional gut punch, the first true casualty cruelty of the golden child dynamic, playing out in its most destructive form. It's a textbook example of how a history of favoritism can lead to a blatant disregard for truth and consequence by the favored party, and the devastating impact on the unfavored. And for Liam, it was the start of an impossible uphill climb. In the interrogation room, the air was stale, smelling faintly of stale coffee and disinfectant. The fluorescent lights hummed with a low, oppressive drone. Officer Miller and another younger officer, Detective Davies, sat across from Liam. So Liam, Detective Davies began, his voice surprisingly gentle, a stark contrast to Miller's earlier aggression. Let's go over this again. You're telling us you were just driving along and your sister's black SUV, the one registered to your father, just crashed itself. He leaned forward, an eyebrow raised, trying to project a semblance of empathy, but it felt hollow, practiced. Liam, still numb, tried to articulate. No, detective. I said it swerved from the lane next to me. I saw it happen. I pulled over to help. I didn't know it was Chloe's until I got closer. After the airbags deployed, Miller interjected, his voice sharp, but then you got in her car, right, and tried to drive it away before the witness saw you and called 911. No. I didn't get in her car. I got out of my car. Liam gestured with his shackled hands. I saw someone, a figure, dark hair, scrambling out of the SUV and running into the bushes on the other side of the street. I was trying to figure out what was going on. Then, a few minutes later, Officer Miller showed up. Davies sighed, leaning back. Look, Liam, we have a clear witness statement. Dark-haired male, got out of the SUV, got into the silver sedan, tried to leave. That's you, isn't it? You matched the description. It could have been anyone with dark hair. Liam insisted, his voice rising in frustration. And I was in my car, officer, my C. Liver sedan. He tapped his chest. I have my driver's license, registration, insurance in my wallet. They're for this car, not the SUV. We checked. Miller said dismissively, your license is clean. But the SUV is registered to your father. He says he loaned it to you for the evening. And then your sister Chloe called us extremely distressed, saying you'd crashed her car, her father's car, and were trying to pin it on her. She said she was worried you'd try to run, that you're always getting into trouble. And there it was. The lie fully formed, dripping with Chloe's calculated malice, perfectly aligned with his parents' long-standing narrative. The troublemaker, Liam, the irresponsible one, contrasted with the perfect Chloe. It was a poison that had seeped into every corner of their family dynamic since childhood. It wasn't just a cover-up, it was a reassertion of a deeply entrenched family mythology. The sheer audacity of it, the immediate and preemptive strike by Chloe to frame him, spoke volumes about her character, and the blind spot his parents had always maintained. My father loaned it to me, Liam repeated, a bitter laugh escaping him. He hasn't let me touch that SUV since he bought it for Chloe. He practically keeps it under lock and key. And Chloe calling you? She's the one who was driving it. She's framing me. Miller stood up, his patience clearly at an end. Look, son, your story doesn't add up. We have a witness. Your sister's testimony and the evidence at the scene points to you. We're going to hold you. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. The monotonous recitation of rights washed over Liam. A cold wave of reality. He wasn't just being accused. He was being swallowed whole by a carefully constructed deceit manufactured by his own family. The weight of this betrayal heavier than any set of handcuffs pressed down on him. This wasn't just about a car crash, it was about the erosion of trust, the calculated destruction of his reputation, and the willing participation of his parents in a heinous lie. The interrogation was less about finding truth and more about confirming a preconceived narrative, a classic demonstration of confirmation bias, fueled by external pressures, in this case a seemingly distraught sister and concerned parents. This early dialogue sets the stage for the true challenge, disproving not just an event but an entire family history. The fluorescent hum of the jail cell, a constant companion, was a small mercy compared to the crushing silence of his parents' refusal to take his calls. When Liam finally got his one call, he dialed Martha, his mother, his fingers fumbling with the unfamiliar keypad. Liam, is that really you? Her voice, usually soft, was brittle, laced with disappointment, not concern. Mom, it's me. I'm in jail. They arrested me for Chloe's crash. A sharp intake of breath. Liam, how could you? We heard what happened. Chloe is absolutely devastated. She told us everything, how you took the car, how you promised to be careful, and then you just crashed it and tried to make it look like her. Mom, that's not what happened. Chloe was driving. I saw her. Liam's voice cracked, desperation clawing at his throat. She ran from the scene. She ran into the bushes. She's lying to you, to the police. Don't you dare speak about your sister that way. Robert's voice, stern and unyielding, suddenly boomed from the background, clearly on speakerphone. We've had enough of your accusations, Liam. Chloe has been through enough. We told the police you had the car tonight. We're standing by her. You told them what? Liam whispered. The blood doctor aiming from his face. Dad, you know that's not true. You know I don't drive Chloe's car. You never let me. Well, you must have this time, didn't you? Martha said, her voice turning cold. Why else would the police have called us? You've always been so reckless, Liam. We're tired of it. This time you have to face the consequences. The line went dead. Click. That click, it wasn't just a hang up. It was the sound of a door slamming shut. Not just on a phone call, but on years of hope, on any lingering belief Liam had in his family's unconditional love. It was the ultimate crushing blow of the golden child dynamic, where one child is immune to criticism, their narrative sacrosanct, while the other is perpetually guilty even when demonstrably innocent. The narrative in me observing this feels a sickening lurk. The deliberate, premeditated falsification of testimony by parents to protect one child at the expense of another is a profound and primal betrayal. This isn't just about a car, it's about the very fabric of family, torn asunder by favoritism and fear of social repercussions. The physical sensation of witnessing this kind of emotional violence, even through the sterile lens of a case file, is jarring. It makes you want to reach through the screen and shake sense into them. Enter attorney Evelyn Reed. She was introduced to Liam through a beleaguered public defender who, recognizing the complexity of the family dynamic and the sheer audacity of the frame-up, felt Liam needed someone with more teeth. Reed was not what Liam expected, not the flashy suit-wearing type. She was sharp with kind but weary eyes, a no-nonsense demeanor, and a reputation for dismantling complex lies with methodical precision. Her office was, thankfully, a stark contrast to the jail. Dimly lit, overflowing with paper, the scent of old books and strong coffee permeating. The air, the hum here was from a well-worn mini fridge in the corner, a gentle, reassuring thrum. So Liam, she began, leaning back in her creaking leather chair, her gaze unwavering. Your public defender gave me the rundown. Your sister Chloe crashed her father's SUV, then called the police, accusing you. And your parents corroborated her story, effectively putting you behind bars. She stated it as a fact, not a question, her voice low and even, yes, that's it, Liam replied. Relief washing over him that someone finally believed him. All right, let's not get ahead of ourselves with belief, Liam. My job is to find proof. Lote, your family has a strong narrative bolstered by a witness account, however flimsy, and the initial police report. That's a powerful current we're swimming against. She paused, picking up a pen and twirling it. Tell me everything again. From the moment you left your house until the moment Officer Miller slapped those cuffs on you. Liam recounted it all, every detail, the blur of the SUV, the figure running his own shock. He described the history, the golden child status of Chloe, his own struggles to be seen or heard, the constant blame. Reed listened, her expression unreadable. She took copious notes, her pen scratching rhythmically. When he finished, she leaned forward, her voice becoming crisper. Okay, this is going to be a forensic deep dive, Liam. We're not just fighting a criminal charge, we're fighting a long-standing family narrative, a deep-seated bias. That's a tougher beast. But lies, especially elaborate ones, leave traces. What kind of traces? Liam asked. Hope, fragile but present, flickered. Liam asked. Hope, fragile but present, flickered. Digital traces, physical traces, behavioral traces. She'd take them off on her fingers. First, the crash scene. I'm dispatching my own private investigator, Mark, to re-examine it. Police forensics can be selective, ES. Piecemeally when a narrative is already established, we need to look for paint transfers, tire marks, debris patterns, anything that suggests two vehicles were involved in an interaction, not just one crashing alone. And more importantly, anything that points to the SUV driver fleeing before you arrived, or at least before you exited your own car. Second, the vehicles themselves, your sedan and Chloe's SUV. We need to impound them both legally before anything can be lost or modified. Your car's event data recorder, the black box, will tell us speed, braking, steering input, seatbelt status for your vehicle leading up to the crash. More crucially, if Chloe's SUV has one, we need to access it. That's where the real smoking gun might be, but they won't let us near Chloe's car, will they? And the police already have it. Liam worried they'll have to with a court order, and if the police lost the data or can't access it, that raises serious questions about their due diligence or worse, collusion. Reed's eyes narrowed. Third, cell phone data, your phone, Chloe's phone, your parents' phones. Location pings, call logs, text messages, who was calling whom, and from where immediately before and after the crash. If Chloe was home, supposedly devastated, why was her phone pinging near the crash site? Or if your parents say they weren't involved, but their phones show unusual activity, or calls to Chloe right after the crash that weren't about her distress, but about constructing a story, they won't give us their phones, Liam stated, certain. No, but a subpoena can compel that, and we don't need the phones themselves. We need the carrier data, metadata, time, duration, location of calls and texts. Even deleted messages often leave a trail in cloud backups or on servers. We'll need a forensic IT expert for that. I know just the person Ethan did. I say digital wizard, fourth the witness. Who is this witness? Where were they? What exactly did they see? Sometimes witnesses are less reliable than they appear, or their testimony can be swayed by initial police questioning. We'll track them down, get an independent statement, and fifth, traffic cameras, dash cams, doorbell cameras. In this day and age, almost every corner has an eye on it. We'll canvass the entire route, the surrounding businesses, every home with a Ring doorbell within a 5-mile radius of the crash site. Reed's methodical breakdown was a lifeline. The meticulous planning, the scientific approach to truth was a stark contrast to the emotional chaos Liam had been swimming in. The weight of the legal documents piled on Reed's desk, the dull thud of the old stapler as she organized files, the hum of the small fridge, these sensory anchors rooted Liam in the reality of his fight, reminding him that objective evidence, not family mythology, would be his salvation. The sheer volume of data points Reed was proposing to investigate, the level of granular detail felt daunting yet exhilarating. This wasn't about subjective blame, it was about irrefutable fact. This part of the narrative is where the forensic architect truly takes over. It's the painstaking process of chipping away at a carefully constructed lie, piece by excruciating piece. The amount of work involved, the resources required to peel back these layers of deceit, underscores the monumental effort it takes to uncover truth when it's been deliberately buried, and it also highlights the privilege inherent in having the means to hire an attorney like Reed. For many, such a thorough investigation would be financially impossible, leaving them at the mercy of the initial flawed narrative. The forensic deep dive took weeks, turning into months. Reed's office became a second home for Liam. The familiar scent of old paper and coffee, a peculiar comfort. Mark Reed's private investigator was the first to report back from the crash site. His boots, Liam imagined, tracking through the same shattered glass and mud that Officer Miller had dismissed. All right, Evelyn, Mark's voice crackled over the speakerphone, a gruff, gravelly tone. Re-examine the scene. There's a particular kind of scuff, Mark, on the asphalt, consistent with a rapid acceleration and turn from the SUV, not a simple loss of control. Also, some paint transfer on the streetlight that's consistent with a low impact scrape from Chloe's SUV, but not the primary damage. The main impact point is higher, suggesting the car was still airborne or heavily tilted when it hit. What's critical, though, is the lack of any glass or debris from Liam's sedan at the immediate crash site of the SUV. The only debris from Liam's car is further down, where he actually pulled over, not where the main incident occurred. The police report barely mentions this distinction, lumping all debris together. Excellent, Mark Reed replied, her pen already flying across a legal pad. It suggests Liam's car wasn't involved in the initial impact, confirming his account of simply being a bystander who pulled over after the fact. Next came Ethan, the tech wizard. He was a lanky, intense man, perpetually hunched over a laptop, fingers dancing across the keyboard. He looked like he lived on caffeine and code. He managed to get the subpoenaed cell phone data from the carrier. He arrived in Reed's office with a stack of printouts looking like he'd wrestled a dragon. Okay, Evelyn, Liam, this is fascinating. And damning, Ethan spread out a series of color-coded charts. Liam's phone pings show a consistent trajectory from his workplace directly home until his phone briefly stops pinging right at the crash site. Confi. Roaming his presence and immediate stop. Standard stuff. He then pointed to another chart, a chaotic web of lines. Chloe's phone, however, completely different story. She made a call to Liam's father, Robert, at 12:07 a.m., just 3 minutes after the crash was reported to 911. Her phone was pinging at the crash site for a good 10 minutes after the impact, then moved rapidly away southwest. About 2 miles away, it settled for a bit, then moved back towards her parents' home. It took her almost 45 minutes to get home, despite it being a 15-minute drive. Why the detour? Liam felt a cold dread creep over him. She was hiding, or planning. Precisely. Reed confirmed, her voice low. And the content of that 12:07 a.m. call to Robert, we may not get the exact audio without a warrant for a specific wiretap, but the duration is telling. 7 minutes. A lot of information or a lot of panicked planning can happen in 7 minutes. Then at 12:20 a.m., Robert calls Martha. Another long call, 5 minutes. And then 10 minutes later, Robert makes a call to the police non-emergency line to give his version of events, corroborating Chloe's. The timeline of these calls directly contradicts the distressed Chloe calling from home after Liam crashed her car narrative. She was there. She called immediately. They coordinated. The weight of this information hit Liam like a physical blow. His own father actively conspiring with his sister to frame him, to lie to the police, to destroy his life. The physical sensation of this betrayal was like a tightening band around his chest, a sickening plunge in his stomach. The sheer callousness, the calculated nature of it was almost harder to bear than the crash itself. This wasn't a mistake. It was a deliberate, malicious act. As a narrator witnessing this unraveling of family bonds, it feels like watching a slow dash motion car crash, the metal twisting, shattering beyond repair. The reactive abuse dynamic comes to mind, not necessarily from Liam, but from Chloe. A preemptive strike, a desperate act of self-preservation fueled by a lifetime of never having to face consequences, projecting her guilt onto the convenient scapegoat. And the pièce de résistance, Ethan continued, his fingers flying across the keyboard to pull up another screen, the event data recorder from Chloe's SUV. It was encrypted, but after a week of digging, I managed to crack it. This is the smoking gun you were looking for. He displayed a timeline, 12 hours 4 minutes and 17 seconds AM. Vehicle speed 78 miles per hour in a 35 miles per hour in a 35 miles per hour zone. 12 hours 4 minutes and 20 seconds AM. Hard brake application. 12 hours 4 minutes and 21 seconds AM. Significant steering input to the left. 12 hours 4 minutes and 22 seconds AM. Airbag deployment. 12 hours 4 minutes and 23 seconds AM. Seatbelt unbuckled. 12 hours 4 minutes and 23 seconds AM. Seatbelt unbuckled, 12 hours, 4 minutes, and 25 seconds AM. Driver door opened, and this is key, weight sensor on the passenger seat, 0, empty. Liam stared at the data, the cold, irrefutable numbers. It was all there. Chloe was speeding, lost control, crashed, and she was alone. The small detail the police and his family had forgotten, or rather, willfully ignored. It wasn't just a detail, it was the detail. The police did access this, didn't they? Liam asked, a chill running down his spine. They must have seen this. Reed pressed her lips into a thin line. That, Liam, is the next question we pose to the prosecution. Either their forensics team was incompetent, or they chose to ignore it. Either way, it completely undermines their case against you. She closed her folder with a decisive snap. We have everything we need. This isn't just reasonable doubt. This is irrefutable proof. Chloe drove, Chloe crashed, Chloe fled, and your parents aided and abetted her in framing you. The meticulousness of this investigation, the sheer dedication to data, is what truly defines a forensic narrative. It's not about grand gestures or dramatic confessions. It's about the silent, persistent hum of a server, the faint residue of paint, the precise timestamp of a call. It's the invisible threads that, when woven together correctly, create an unbreakable rope of truth. The narrator feels a surge of vindication. This is why we do what we do, to expose the hidden, to make the unseen seen. This process, this forensic deep dive, is the painstaking labor of turning subjective claims into objective facts, dismantling a narrative of convenience with the unyielding logic of data. It reminds me of similar cases where meticulously recovered deleted emails or fragments of financial metadata completely flip the script, revealing the architect of the lie. The sheer human effort behind recovering that encrypted EDR data, analyzing those pings, that's the real hero of this story, more so than any dramatic courtroom speech. The meeting with District Attorney Henderson was a tense affair. The DA, a seasoned prosecutor with a reputation for being tough but fair, sat across from Reed, a thick file open before him. Officer Miller and Detective Davies were also present, their faces impassive. Attorney Reed, Henderson began, his voice gravelly. I've reviewed the preliminary evidence. Your client, Liam, was at the scene. His car was identified. Your sister, Chloe, unequivocally states he was driving her SUV. His parents corroborate this. It's an open and shut case of reckless driving, hit and run, and evasion. The weight of legal precedent, the expectation of swift justice, hung heavy in the air, a palpable pressure. With all due respect, Mr. Henderson, that narrative is less open and shut and more conveniently constructed. Reed countered, her voice calm but firm. She pushed a stack of documents across the pole. Is actually table. Here you'll find the findings from our independent private investigator. Mark his analysis of the crash scene debris patterns. Our forensic IT expert Ethan's complete breakdown of Chloe's cell phone metadata, location pings, call logs, timestamps, and most critically, the fully decrypted event data recorder from the SUV itself. Henderson picked up the EDR report, his eyebrows raising slightly as he scanned the key timestamps. He then looked at Officer Miller and Detective Davies. Is this accurate? Did your team retrieve and decrypt this EDR data? Miller shifted uncomfortably. Sir, we have the black box, yes, but it was difficult to access. We prioritized the witness statement and Ms. Miller's and her parents' accounts as primary evidence. Difficult to access or conveniently overlooked. Reed interjected, her voice sharp. Because these records clearly show the SUV was traveling at 78 miles per hour in a 35 miles per hour zone, underwent hard-braking drastic steering input, airbag deployment, the driver's seatbelt unbuckling, all within a span of 8 seconds. Furthermore, the passenger seat was empty. No second person, she paused, letting the implication hang in the air like an accusation. The driver exited the vehicle 25 seconds after airbag deployment, and the cell phone metadata shows Chloe Miller's phone was at the crash site for 10 minutes post-impact, then made a frantic call to Robert Miller, who then called Martha Miller, before Robert then called the police to report his son Liam had stolen and crashed Chloe's vehicle. A full 45 minutes before Chloe herself arrived home to deliver her distress testimony. The silence that followed was thick, heavy, punctuated only by the low hum of the air conditioning unit. Henderson's face, which had been set in a confident sternness, began to show cracks of doubt, then dawning realization. And finally, flicker of outrage. He looked at Miller and Davies, his expression darkening. Officer Miller, Detective Davies, Henderson said, his voice dangerously quiet. Are you telling me this critical evidence, the EDR, was not thoroughly examined, despite its clear implications for the identity of the driver and passenger count? Miller stammered, sir, the initial reports, the witness, we had a clear account officer that has been systematically dismantled by irrefutable digital and physical evidence. Reed finished pressing her advantage. The witness, who identified a dark-haired male, could have easily seen Chloe, who has dark hair. And her testimony, along with her parents, was demonstrably false, a carefully orchestrated attempt to frame Liam. This is not just a case of mistaken identity, Mr. Henderson. This is obstruction of justice, perjury, and potentially conspiracy to commit a crime. The sudden weight of Henderson's gaze on his officers was palpable. The flickering fluorescent light in the DA's office seemed to expose every uncomfortable shift in their seats. This was the moment the small detail became a tidal wave. The meticulously collected data, the precise timestamps, the irrefutable black box recordings, they had transformed Liam from a convenient scapegoat into a victim of egregious familial betrayal and prosecutorial negligence. As a narrator, I felt the sheer relief, the almost physical release of tension, as the truth finally broke through the layers of deceit. This is where the narrative architect feels the most satisfaction, seeing the careful construction of a counter-narrative not just challenge, but utterly obliterate the initial false one. It's not just about winning, it's about restoring an imbalance. The aftermath was a brutal public spectacle, with the overwhelming evidence presented by a torn Reed. The DA's office had no choice but to drop all charges against Liam. More than that, they initiated an investigation into Chloe for reckless driving, hit and run, and filing a false police report, and into Robert and Martha for obstruction of justice and perjury. The pressure mounted. The media, once sympathetic to Chloe's distress, now turned its hungry gaze to the unfolding family drama. Chloe, once the untouchable golden child, found herself in the cold, harsh glare of public scrutiny and legal consequence. Her usual charm and practiced innocence were useless against the unyielding data of the EDR and the timestamp phone records. For attempts to spin a new narrative, Liam convinced me to say it was him. Or my parents misunderstood what I told them, crumbled under the weight of her own documented lies. The family home, once a bastion of carefully cultivated appearances, became a fortress under siege. Reporters camped outside, neighbors whispered, and the phone rang relentlessly. Robert and Martha, faced with potential criminal charges and the very real possibility of losing their social standing and reputations, finally cracked. In a tearful, desperate meeting with Reed and Liam, their faces etched with lines of fear and shame, they finally admitted the truth. Liam, Martha choked out, her voice barely audible. We were just trying to protect Chloe. She was so scared she called us right after the crash, hysterical, saying she had been speeding and lost control. She begged us just this once to say you were driving. She said you wouldn't mind because you always get into trouble anyway. Then Robert, his shoulders slumped, nodded. She said she saw you pull up after the crash, Liam, and that gave her an idea. She convinced us it would be easier if you took the blame, that you could handle it. We thought we were doing the right thing for her. She's our daughter. Liam sat there, listening to their tortured confessions, feeling nothing but a profound emptiness. You thought you were doing the right thing by sending your own son to prison for a crime he didn't commit, by lying to the police, by destroying my life just to protect Chloe from the consequences of her own recklessness. His voice was flat, devoid of emotion, a stark contrast to the hurricane of anger and hurt raging within him. This confession, wrung out not by remorse but by the fear of their own impending ruin, was the true cost of their winning for so long. It revealed the depths of their sunk cost fallacy, their continued investment in Chloe's perfect image, even when it meant sacrificing Liam. The moral bankruptcy of it was staggering. The physical sensation for Liam must have been one of profound disillusionment, watching his parents, stripped bare of their authority and their carefully constructed lies, become pathetic, groveling figures. The narrator observes this with a sense of grim satisfaction. The truth, ugly as it may be, has a way of asserting itself eventually. In the end, Chloe pleaded guilty to a lesser charge of reckless driving and hit and run, receiving probation, heavy fines, and a suspended license. The DA, seeing the public nature of the scandal and the collapse of the family unit, opted not to pursue charges against Robert and Martha, citing their cooperation in Chloe's plea and the immense familial cost already incurred. It was a compromise, a decision rooted in the practicalities of the justice system rather than a pure application of moral right. Watching your videos, so if you're getting views, Liam walked free, his name cleared, his future reclaimed. But what of the family? What of the relationships shattered beyond repair? He had won the legal battle, but the war for his family's love and respect was a lost cause, extinguished in the cold, calculated betrayal that night. He had rebuilt his life, found a new path, free from the shadow of his sister and parents' expectations. But the scars, the deep emotional fissures remained. This case is a stark reminder: justice, when it comes, is not always a balm. Sometimes it's a searing fire, burning away not just the lies, but everything around them. Liam's victory was a lonely one, a testament to resilience, but also to profound loss. He got justice, yes, but at what cost to his soul, to his belief in family? Was Chloe's ultimate exposure and the parents' public humiliation a justified outcome for their decades of emotional abuse and their final devastating act of betrayal, or did the pursuit of this truth leave Liam himself a permanent casualty, forever scarred by the ruins of his own family? Let's debate the ethics in the comments.